Greetings, adventurers. My name is Tyler Brandt, and I'm one of the co-founders of DungeonFinder, the progressive web app with a quest to help you find your ideal tabletop role-playing game group. I co-founded DungeonFinder with my two partners, Seyoung Yang and Robert Gibbons, and in this video, I'm going to provide a demonstration of the major use cases of DungeonFinder. And with that, we are still in our development process. Specifically, we have done our second release, and of course, we are looking for testers. So if you guys are interested in providing feedback and helping us improve DungeonFinder to better suit your needs, feel free to visit this link here, thedungeonfinder.com. And down on the lower right here, you guys will notice that we do have a link to a Google Forms survey that will allow us to compile the data and figure out how to best strategize our next release. Of course, if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to drop a comment, or when I switch to my main account, you guys will also notice my Discord. You're more than welcome to reach out to me through there as well. But without further ado, let's get into the demonstration. So when we first log into DungeonFinder, we're going to be greeted with this main page here, which features several different prompts for the players to truly determine what is important to them. As you guys can see, almost all of these fields are labeled optional, and even in the tags field here, you can add as many or as few as you want. So you can truly filter through all the games based on the criteria that you need. Of course, with all the ones that are labeled to have a direct label of optional, it's going to completely filter out games that do not match from it. So say if I were say I want to select Dungeons and Dragons 5e here. Any games that do not match the Dungeons and Dragons 5e system are going to be completely removed from the search results when we click search here. We do of course have limited options. We are of course going to be adding more systems as we go, and we might even add an other field in our next release as well. Once again, if there's a system that you would like to see in this drop down, feel free to let us know that in the survey or in the comments, wherever. Same thing with like session frequency, which is another rather limited thing. I know for sure we'll be adding a one-shot in our next iteration, but please be let me know if there's any other frequencies that we would be optimal to add. With that being said, you guys probably deduced that with it being with all fields being optional, we can do an empty search, and that's going to return all games that are available. Available just means that it has slots open so players can indeed join it, that do not belong to me. So any game that I created as my Ty Brandt profile here are going to be completely removed from the search results, because you probably don't want to join a game you're running. Of course, it provides it in this nice table format, where these tables show the campaign name, the system that is being run as, the game master's availability, the session frequency, and tags. You guys can see that when in the previous search we had the Dungeons and Dragons system chosen, so we only get D&D 5e games. If we were to go back and make that blank, do a search, we can now see that we are indeed getting a few other games for TTRPG, Star Trek Adventures, and Starfinder. So as you guys can see, those were initially filtered out. In terms of the tags, of course, you guys are more than welcome to choose to elect to have zero match tags filtered out. So if I were to do this and put horror, we do a search, we see that we only get the haunt, which has a single horror tag. Otherwise, if we were to do it like this, where we don't filter it out, give me one moment. We can see that the haunt is now first, right? So we can see like right here we have the little tags key. Oops. We have little tags. If we were to go back, and we can see that none of those tags are towards the beginning. If we go back and enter tags and we go forward, we can see that now all the ones that have tags in it are ordered front. You guys already kind of noticed this, but clicking on the row, especially with up here, gives instructions. If you click on a row, it's going to take you to the main game page. And right here, we once again feature the main data that was in the table view, as well as a more in-depth description that the Dungeon Master would do. and a link to their profile. Some games do prompt for an application, which can be noted based on whether this button here says apply, or if it does not does not require an application to be filled out, it will say join. For games that require an application, you just click apply, and it's going to take you to a form of questions questions or prompts that the Dungeon Master specify for this particular game. All you got to do is fill out the form. So I'll go ahead and briefly fill out the form, and I'll kind of show you guys what it'll look like on the Game Master side in a little bit. So, we can fill out these forms. We'll just do some basic stuff. And we submit application. When we go back, we can now see that the button has been grayed out and says applied. When we click on the Game Master's profile here, we once again have some basic data with their TTRPG experience, some of their favorite systems, as well as a brief bio. There's also a link to their Discord, should they choose to elect it. In fact, all these fields are completely optional. You guys can change them from your profile, and I'll actually go ahead and show that in my Fantastical Pug account. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and take a look at how to create a game, and we'll actually go ahead and go to Fantastical Pug. So here we go. Alrighty. So to create a game, once again, as you guys can see, that once we log back in, we're going to this page, just scroll down and hit this create a post game. Once again, we're greeted with very similar prompts, but all of these ones are required, except for, of course, this image, and you can elect to choose to click the checkbox or not. But essentially, all these fields are required to allow for dungeon masters and players to, in the long run, do as little work to really log and keep track and manage their games. We figured that adding a little bit of extra information in the beginning will ensure that you guys don't have to spend near as much time in the, shall we say, the networking process. We're trying to find players and all that. But if we give this a name, and your guys, Dungeon Masters are encouraged to be as descriptive as possible in many parts, especially with the tags and the description fields. But for the sake of brevity, I'm just going to be very general, right? So we can select multiple days. As you guys can see, if you're on a computer, you're going to have to either press the control key, or if you're on Mac, you're going to want to press command, and that will allow you to select multiple days. So we can choose like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I can select them all. I can select one. I just need to select at least one. You can enter times and days. And on mobile, this site is for the most part mobile friendly. As I mentioned, we are still in the development process, but if you guys do want to test it on mobile, you guys should ideally have a solid experience on that. At least no different than if you were to try the website itself. But we can put in our session frequency as well, and all these fields are much better, so like you don't have to press the control or command. Mobile devices actually have a pretty good way of handling these multi-selects. Then we can put in our tags. Once again, we define a tag either by pressing enter or comma, or if I can even click out. So like if we do that and I click there, you guys can see that the tag was added. So anything you guys add will eventually be added. Entering comma, pressing enter or adding a comma is just a good way to add a tag without leaving the text field. Then in the description, once again, you guys are encouraged to be as descriptive as possible. For the sake of brevity, I'm just doing that. You guys can enter how many players you're willing to accept to join. Has to be, of course, a integer and a positive number. We have the arrows down here so that you guys can decrement or increment it as you wish. Experience levels that you're willing to accept. And we can choose a campaign file, which is optional. Just allows you to add a bit more flavor and flair to your post. And you guys can elect to have a players join. To kind of show you what that looks like on the Game Master side of things, we'll go ahead and click that. And then I click create campaign post. So it's going to take you here, and you guys can add questions simply by typing the question and you guys got to press add question. And you guys can add as many or as little as you want, but when you're done, just do create application, and you guys will be directed to the game page. You guys can see that while that we're on a game that we are running, we do have a few extra things, such as we now have a list of all players that joined. We did have one tester mention that maybe adding this for the players side as well. If you guys think that's a good idea, be sure to put that in the form, and we'll definitely make sure that that is on both the player view as well as the game master view for games. But they also have the ability to remove a campaign, which pops up this modal just to make sure that that is indeed what you want to do, along with some nerdy kind of dorky warning messages and button responses. They can edit the campaign, which is going to take you back to this form, but with your current answers pre-generated. The only one that's not going to be pre-generated, regardless of if you have an image or not, is going to be the campaign image optional. But your image will save, so you only need to do this if you need a new image. Clicking update campaign will of course update it with the necessary information. So actually to prove that, we see that we have two tags here. We edit, we add a new tag, update, and we can see that we now have a new tag. If we go to, let's go ahead and say if we go back to our Ty Brandt account. Give me one moment. Then we press search and we go down to the bottom since that's the newest game. Our philosophy, our reasoning for having the newer games appear at the bottom is more so to get the older games to make sure that they have players. So that way old posts never get buried. And of course, games that are on here should ideally be valid. But of course, actually, give me 1 second. You can actually do it another way. So let me go back to my Fantastical Pug account. And if we go to view profile, so as you guys can see, the view profile of course has a list of the games that you're running and games that you're joining when you're on your profile specifically. A button to edit a profile, which is where you can modify your things. So if I were to just command A, I'll command C that so I can put it back in, update. You guys can see that my bio is no longer there, and to make sure that people know that, you know, don't have an error with the server and that they just elected not to give any bio information, we have that little message. But I'll go ahead and put that back in real quick. And of course, we have a link to our Discord, which is going to take us to our Discord authentication and all that. I know this is supply the username along with your identifier. So like mine is Fantastical Pug number 6200, which I will actually, why not? We're going to do that real quick. Authorize. So there you guys go. That's what that will look like, and of course you guys can choose to unlink it whenever you want. If we go to the haunt, because we have my Ty Brandt account applied to that, we view applications. You can see that we have another table view where we have a link to their profile at the very left, the answers to the questions, as well as an accept or apply button, or sorry, accept button to accept them in. If we press accept and we return to the game, we can see that sure enough they've been added, and say that I no longer want them, simply press remove adventures and they are gone. Now if we wanted to go back here and we press on this one, you guys can see that this one does not prompt an application. So we have a join button. I can click that and leave it to my heart's content, and that will simply add me or leave me as many times as possible. If an application prompts for reply, you guys will see this leave button too once you get accepted, and it'll function just like this up until you refresh it. Just in case you clicked out by mistake, we don't want our players to have to reapply. Dungeon masters will, or sorry, game masters wouldn't be unable to re-add a player if they accidentally removed them currently. But if you guys feel that is important, once again, be sure to leave that in the survey below, and we will be sure to make sure that game masters have a little bit of extra security to avoid any misclicks. With that, this concludes the demonstration. I thank everyone for paying attention. And once again, we are still, of course, looking for as much feedback as possible. So feel free to explore it on your own at thedungeonfinder.com, or otherwise feel free to just fill out the survey and leave feedback. I'll leave both the links for Dungeon Finder as well as for the survey in the description below. Once again, I thank you guys so much for paying attention, for giving us your attention and helping us improve Dungeon Finder, and I wish you guys all the luck in vanquishing whatever horde you had to face. Until next time, fair travels.